In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to synthesize an 808 kick drum that'll sound like this. This kick drum will be created by modulating various performers in the performance envelopes within the synthesizer to create our kick sound. This patch is also cool because there's lots of customization options available as well that enable you to evolve the kick drum based on what you're wanting. So if you're wanting something that's more distorted and hollow sounding, you can adjust the distortion parameters, as I'll show you a little bit later. Or if you want to create a kick drum that's a bit more long and drawn out, you can just adjust the envelopes that I'll show you how to create. So there's lots of customization features inside of this patch that are available that will enable you to customize a kick drum based on what you like. So let's go ahead and open an initialized version of Massive, and I'll show you how to make this patch. So the first thing that we want to do is keep everything on this default wavetable. And we just want to turn this down till it's almost just a regular sine wave, but just a little bit of that triangle wave blended in. This will give us a little bit more overtones and harmonics to work with inside of our kick drum. Then we can go over to the semitone control and just bring that down to -12 so we have more of a bass tone. And then we'll actually be bringing down the volume as well, because we'll be automating this a little bit later with some modulation. The next thing we want to do is go into our voicings tab and change this to a monophonic sound so we can only play one note at a time. And then we also want to turn off monolegato so that it re-triggers the note every single time we press our key. If you leave this enabled and the keys overlap slightly, it won't re-trigger all of the kick envelopes that we'll create, so it won't replay the kick sound whenever you play another key. So if you want it to be more of a kick drum rather than a synth patch, you want to go ahead and turn off the monolegato. Then you want to go to the engine setup and turn that to reset all. So this means the phase of the oscillators will reset every single time you press a key. So they'll automatically reset to the phase that you have set in these parameters up here. This will ensure that the kick drum sounds the same every time a new note is pressed. If you disable this and you're on free run mode, the wave will independently cycle every time the note is pressed, so it might sound slightly different whenever the second kick drum note plays. So you want to go ahead and make sure that reset all is enabled. Then let's go over into our amplifier envelope, and then we'll make some adjustments to make the sound a little bit more like a kick drum. So go ahead and make sure the attack is turned all the way down. Bring the decay up just slightly. And then we want to take the sustain and bring that down to about maybe 15 to 10% or so. And then we also want to take the shape and bring that down as well. This will tighten up the decay envelope on our sound, giving it a little bit more of a tight and percussive kick drum sound. We can also bump up the release slightly. And so far, that sounds like this. So it doesn't sound like much right now, but we'll be adjusting that a little bit later and kind of customizing it to the sound that we're going after. Then we want to go and add just a touch of white noise to the signal. This will give us a little bit more of kind of a distortion that'll sit on top of everything. So it makes it sound like it's sort of a blown out speaker or something like that, which is a little bit of an interesting effect. And then we'll go into our filter and just add some distortion. So we'll go over to the Monarch filter and just overdrive that to almost all the way up, just about there will work. And then make sure the resonance is turned all the way down and all of these filter settings are at their full amounts. So that just adds a little bit of analog saturation to the overall sound. Then let's go ahead and move over to our performance envelope number 1, and we'll be creating an envelope for the pitch of our kick drum. And you could always do this in the other envelopes as well, if you prefer to work in these modulation envelopes, but I find, especially with the kick drums, it's a little bit easier to draw everything out visually. So let's go ahead and create a few different points. We have this first point, we will add in a second point, and then we'll add in a third point. So bring this one all the way up. Keep this one at just about there or so. And then we could bring this next one down. And then we can go ahead and click on this and just drag that downwards. So it gives us more of a tight sounding envelope. And we could even bring this down just a little bit as well. So it's just about there. Then we can go ahead and apply that to the pitch of our oscillator. So turn this up to +24. So that means this will pitch bend 2 full octaves. So at the top, this is 2 octaves up, and then it'll pitch bend down to our regular note. And then we also want to go ahead and make sure that the keyboard launch is enabled. So this envelope will re-trigger every single time a new note is pressed. You could even tighten up that envelope just slightly. And based on what you set that envelope to, it'll change the overall characteristic of your kick drum. And then you can also combine that with the amplifier envelope to adjust the overall volume of everything. So if I wanted to tighten that up even more, I could bring the shape control all the way down. It gives me more of kind of a synthesized kick drum sound. Or if I brought this up higher, gives me something that's a bit fatter sounding. So adjusting the amplifier envelope and then also this performance envelope as well will give you a lot of control over your sound. Then let's go ahead and add one more envelope in with the performance envelopes. This envelope would be assigned to the wavetable, volume, and noise control, so giving us a little bit more sound shaping possibilities for our kick drum. So let's go ahead and create 2 different points. We'll put this one about halfway through that first bar, and then we'll bring this one all the way up. And then we want this to be sort of a slow fade out, so something just about like that. And we can always adjust this a little bit later if we'd like. It just depends on the type of sound you're going for. And then we want to apply this to the volume of the kick drum, so push that up. Go ahead and assign that to the wavetable position just slightly, just to modulate that. And then we will also apply this to our noise parameter as well. So turn that all the way down, click on this, and just bring that up just a little bit so we just get a tiny bit of that noise. And that sounds like this. You can always turn down the noise. And maybe bring the volume down slightly. You could even extend this out, see what it sounds like. Or even bring this full amount down. It gives us a little bit less intense of a sound. So that way there's not too much crunch on the top end. And that's the cool part about synthesizing these 808s as well, is you have a lot of control over the characteristics of the sound. So if you want more top end, you could adjust some of these parameters, going to add more white noise in, or more of a wavetable modulation. Or if you want something that's a bit tighter, with volume envelopes for a specific song that you're working on, you can always go and adjust that inside the amplifier envelope. So now let's go ahead and add in some distortion, which is a characteristic of a lot of these 808s. So go ahead and load up a nonlinear labs, change that over to the soft clip mode. So we have a bit softer of distortion, bring the drive all the way up, bring the high pass down just a little bit, bring that compression all the way up. And then so far the entire distorted sound at 100% mix sounds like this. So it almost sounds like a hard style kick drum. And then on the left-hand side, we have just our clean signal. And then we can blend those two together. Depending on what sound we're going for. You could even reduce some of this drive as well to get something a bit softer. That's something a bit more of a kind of analog style 808. So it just depends on the type of 808 you're going for. So adjusting things like distortion or the amplifier envelopes inside your 808s give you a lot of control over the types of sounds you're creating. You can even go into your Digital Audio Workstation and layer other distortion effects on top of this as well. FabFilter Saturn is one of my favorites for working with 808s. It's got some really nice saturation and distortion modes that tend to work really great for this type of sound. But just using the effects inside of Massive, the soft clip mode I find works really well, and also the various other distortion modes and amp modeling that you have inside of the nonlinear lab. So now with that out of the way, I can go ahead and just show you those intro notes that I played, so you kind of have a little bit of an idea of how this could be used in a potential project, and how the notes would be sequenced. And just as a reminder, that all sounds like this. So what we have going on here is a 4-bar loop at 150 beats per minute. We have this F note in the first octave, which extends for most of that first bar. And then it just kind of cuts off slightly, so that there's a little bit of that release happening at the end of the note. And then we have it play another F note, which is starting at the last quarter note of that first bar. And that extends for almost the full bar again, and then jumps down to this D in the first octave, which is something that these 808s tend to do, especially at the end of bars or phrases. Either jump down or jump up in pitch, depending on the effect you're going for. You can also use a pitch bend wheel as well to create these types of effects, which can sound really cool. And then we have it go back to the F note here, and then to another F note. So that's all for this video on synthesizing 808s inside of Massive X. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.